The Marlins are hot. The Mets are not, maybe. This is a massive series for the Fish. Sandy Alcantara taking the ball on Friday, and we are going to preview this whole series with Ryan Finkelstein from Locked On Mets. A crossover, kind of. I'm steering the show, but nevertheless, Marlins Mets coming at you hot.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins podcast with me, Peter Pratt. It's the Friday edition. Happy Friday, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. Don't forget to follow me, of course, on Twitter at MiamiMarlins_UK. No TikToks, no Instas. Straight up Twitter only. Of course, if you're watching the show right now, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube too. Subscribers over 100. Sound the klaxons. We are over a ton on the subscribers. And it's available wherever you get your pods. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Delighted to welcome in the house Ryan Finkelstein from Locked On Mets and Just Baseball, it has to be said. Ryan, how are we doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Looking forward to another Mets-Marlins series. We haven't got enough of them this year, so it's going to be exciting.
We absolutely haven't, but they're coming thick and fast. Yeah. This is like series 2 out of 3 in the space of like 4 weeks. It's like Marlins, Mets. They've just queued them up. It's pressure baseball now as well, particularly for the Marlins. Like the season kind of feels on the line for sure, but I'm excited to dig into this one. There's some news rumbling. Max Scherzer may be coming back for the series, may not. Wait and see, but should be a fun series. But before we get into it, guys, reminder: this episode it is brought to you by Blue Nile. And make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more using code Locked On. More about them guys later on. Ryan, are the Mets feeling the pain? Are they starting to feel the heat? They've been scorching all year long. Coming into this series with the Marlins facing Sandy Alcantara on a 2-game losing streak. What's going on with these Mets?
Well, here's the funny thing. There's this sick part of me that goes up against Mets fans at times. Like it's like I'm against my own breed because I just get so frustrated that a Mets fan could watch this whole season and they see 2 games against the Astros and they're panicking. I think in the Mets clubhouse, there's no panic. I think the front office, there's no panic. But I do think that the fan base has a reason to be pessimistic. We've watched Mets baseball for however many years, personally 25 years, and it hasn't always been good. So I get it, and I can just see the scenario. The script is laid out for Alcantara to go out, to shove on Friday night, to beat the Mets. It'll be 3 losses in a row, and Mets fans will panic. But if you really look at the context, the Astros are a good team. They lost 2 games to a really good ball club. And Alcantara, in my opinion, is pitching like the best pitcher in baseball right now, so there's no shame in losing this game as well.
I'm absolutely with you. I'm completely fine with that script as well. If that's the way it goes, yeah. I'm all for that one. And Sandy's just been an absolute beast. If he goes less than 7 innings, he's disappointed. Like he's just a machine.
Crazy.
What's been your take on it? Listen, I get to see it and watch it every 5th day, and it's stunning as a Marlins fan. But as a Mets fan, and having had that same kind of dude, we haven't seen DeGrom at all this year, clearly. But you've been spoiled with that as well historically for the past few years. What's it like as a Mets fan to kind of be looking in and thinking, wow, what's Sandy doing here? It's pretty special.
Yeah, well, obviously you mentioned Just Baseball. I've done some writing about Alcantara this year as well, and the numbers across the board are elite. And the thing that jumps out is he is really embodying what it means to be an ace of a staff. It's kind of similar to Zach Wheeler last year, that he's trading a little bit of strikeouts to pitch to contact, and you should when you have a 101-mile-an-hour sinker that you could throw at the bottom of the zone that it's pretty impossible to hit that ball out of the ballpark, and a lot of times guys just roll it over, and he's able to go really deep in games. I think since May 11th, he is averaging like 8 innings per start, which is mind-boggling. I mean, you're getting towards, I think, almost 10 starts in this span where he's averaging 8 innings, and that's just kind of unheard of. Even at DeGrom's best, I don't think he was even going quite this deep into games. So I've seen the full spectrum of what Alcantara's done through DeGrom. Like last year, it looked a lot like this in the first half. And I've also seen the times where the team doesn't perform for the ace. And I was watching that game where he took the complete, he had the shutout going through 9, and they had to pull him in extras. I haven't rooted that hard for the Marlins. We were talking a little bit before we hit record about how in 03 I was kind of a quiet Marlins fan. That was the first time I've rooted for the Marlins since 03, because I was like, you got to get this guy a win. Yeah. What are we doing? It's unbelievable. So, yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch.
It's funny, the parallels, right? Because for the past couple of years, it was always, you get into Grom. That was the description, which is basically pitch like a stud and the offense goes completely cold. And Sandy, he definitely had a lot of that last year. There's been a little bit of an uptick on the run support this year. Obviously, I mean, going back to last, he had the Heirar Encarnacion salami that propped him up on the Sunday, which was a wild moment for the Marlins fans too, no doubt. As Pete Alonso, has he cooled at all? Because Pete was looking destructive last weekend. It was like I mean, you couldn't pitch it anywhere with Pete. He was looking to take anything deep. Has he cooled off at all in the last week?
You could probably look at the numbers and maybe they're I'm trying to think, like, because he's just been so consistent that what I would get towards is there really hasn't been a cold streak this year. And even if you'd say he's been hot all season, it's just been consistent at bats. You'll see him in spots where they're going to shift him most times, putting an extra infielder on the left side. And in those RBI situations, he shortens up. He goes the other way. He picks up RBIs that way. He's been great at picking up sacrifice flies. I haven't even looked, but I'd imagine he's near the league when it comes to sac flies. So he's just been so productive that there really hasn't been that extended slump, and I don't see one coming this week against the Marlins either.
I'm not sure if there will be. I hope there will be on Friday at least. But
yeah,
I mean, listen, Trevor Rogers has had a rough go of it this year. He's going on the Saturday game. Sunday starter TBD for both clubs right now, but let's assume it's Dan Castano. Again, Pete Alonso will be licking his lips at that one, no doubt about it. So I'm pretty sure Big Pete, will be thinking he can really kind of carry on that hot streak. Talk to me though. I saw it last weekend. There was a moment where Jazz Chisholm and Starling Marte pre-game, they had a massive hug. I even think Jazz just jumped on Starling. For me, I just knew what Starling Marte was to the clubhouse. I knew what a player he was. And I listened to you preseason, in the offseason when that move was made. And I knew you really liked that move at the point. How big has Starling Marte been for these Mets this year?
Yeah, I was, like you said, preseason, but right after the end of last season, really, I kind of got on the Mets need to make Starling Marte their number one priority. Now, at the time, I didn't realize that Max Scherzer was a possibility. So clearly that became the headline of the offseason, but Marte was, the second biggest move they made. He's been huge to this team. He's just a different breed of an athlete. Like, the guy is unbelievable. The way he can just create runs with his legs. How many times have we seen this year where he'll steal second, the throw will trickle away, he'll get to third base, and suddenly you're in the first inning with a runner standing 90 feet away, about to put a run on the board. That's been the biggest thing for me, is in the first inning with Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte, it seems like the Mets always have early havoc on the bases. And even when they don't necessarily put runs up, they will make that pitcher work in the first inning. We saw that a lot in that last series. Trevor Rogers had a first inning where I think he got close to 30 pitches. So it's been big on that front. And defensively, he's incredible as well. His arm in right field is feared.
I mean, he was absolutely stunning in center field. It honestly caught me off guard because I don't watch a ton of the Mets. As a UK fan, it's hard to follow a lot of baseball other than the Marlins. I really focus my time on the Marlins, clearly. We haven't seen each other all year. And there was a right field. Starling Marte caught it, and I was like, oh, Marte's playing right field for the Mets. He's not even in center. I was like, wow, Nimmo must be really hot in center field because Marte last year for the Marlins in center was absolutely sensational. So you have the luxury of playing Starling Marte out in right field and Nimmo there playing center. I think Canna was playing left in the majority of time. It's a massive upgrade when you think back to the Mets last year. I mean, Dom Smith was out there in left field. I mean, it got to be. I mean, what was Dom Smith doing in left field? But actually, he's back up, Dom, I saw. He's been recalled. Is he? I don't know what the the corresponding move was for Dom to be back up. But I did see him taking a few hacks the other day.
I believe at the time it was Seth Lugo going on paternity leave. But yeah, you got Dom back right now. He was sent down, and there was actually going to call up another guy, Daniel Polka, and Polka ended up hurt, so Dom kind of became the de facto guy that got brought back.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much we'll see him this series, but yeah, when you talk about the Mets outfield, I was actually out in front of that one talking about Marte and Wright as well. And the reason being, Brandon Nimmo and Mark Cannon, neither of them has a really strong arm. So Marte is the one you could put out in right field that can really make that throw and kind of control the game. You know, no one right now is tagging up from second on a fly ball to right field to try to get that extra 90 feet. You don't want to test Marte. So I think that's why they did it, and it's worked out pretty well. And Nimmo has actually graded out really well defensively this season in center.
Yeah. I mean, Nimmo, he's just one of them players. He's just a gritty dude. You know, he wants to get on the bases, cause some havoc, and Marte behind him. And then, like you said, you got Lindor, and then Pete Alonso coming in, just sack flies galore. I mean, there's so much traffic in front of Pete Alonso. You can just see you can see how this roster is built and how they score runs and manufacture runs, and it's exactly what the Marlins haven't been able to do. Just the Marlins' problem has been getting runners into scoring position, but not getting them over and across. And that has been the big problem for the Fish. There's tons more to get into, but before we do that, there's a double live read ad extravaganza from me. US ads with a British twist. And it is, I've already mentioned them, our guys over at Blue Nile, BlueNile.com. You can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. So, if you're ready to pop the question, or you celebrate jewelry as unique as her with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. So, if you're thinking about that engagement ring, they've got a simple online tool. It lets you create diamond shape, size, clarity, as well as setting style. And their jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring, it's one of a kind. Yes, bespoke jewelry, one of a kind from BlueNile.com. That sounds absolutely sensational. So, make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. If you're looking at engagement rings, guys, I'm pretty sure it's going to be over $500. So this podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order, it's insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So, shop stress-free. Find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. The episode is also brought to you by our good friends and partners at BetOnline. BetOnline.net, it's your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball, of course. And she continues, including live betting, esports. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcast, big claim, and news this season. So head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online where the game starts. Ryan, if you were a betting man, where would you be going with this series? Mets win?
Yep. Of course I am.
Do you have any money on it, series?
I don't, and I certainly don't have any money on the game tonight. But
No.
I would think, looking at the season so far, the Mets, I think, are still at maybe 4 series losses, about 22 series in. They've been pretty much winning at least 2 out of every 3 series, if not more than that. So I imagine after getting swept, this Mets team will really be looking to get back on track this weekend.
Can I just throw something out there? The Marlins at home right now, they're on a 6-game win streak at home. So, Sandy's going for game 7 here. Game 7 in a row for the Fish at home. I mean, to me, a few weeks back, they felt out of it. The team was not playing well, really struggling. But feels like they've turned a little bit of a corner, had a tough road trip, saw the Astros as well, won the series in Houston. So the Marlins actually went on the road and won. Then obviously got dinged up in New York as well, and Philly as well. We blew a couple of games there. So they've been playing better ball in June. It's a really interesting period for the Fish, no doubt. The other wrinkle we've had going has been the AllStar voting as well. I'm not sure who's the leading candidates here for the Mets, because the team in general is playing well. Alonso must be up there. You would assume Frankie Lindor must be up there. But who's going to be making the All-Star team for these Mets?
Well, so if you're looking at the voting,
Yeah.
I don't know if the Mets get a starter, to be honest with you. So you have Alonso, who's second in the voting,
Mm,
and the way the voting works, for those who aren't aware now, it goes through a phase 1 through fan voting, and then there's finalists, 2 at each position, 6 outfielders, and then the remaining players will vote for the starter. So Paul Goldschmidt will probably start over Alonso. You
hmm
look at shortstop, Lindor might not even be a finalist. They got Swanson and Turner ahead of him.
Cool.
You look in the outfield, Starling Marte is fourth, so he has a chance to start, maybe.
Mm,
But I think probably either him or Jock Peterson or Juan Soto. I don't know if he'll make it over those two guys. The one that actually is interesting is we have a Jazz Chisholm, Jeff McNeil battle, most likely
oh
as the
boy.
finalist at second base. And I think that Chisholm is the more flashy all-star. I would make the case statistically, I could really dive into it, that McNeil has been the better player. And I also am wondering, how is Chisholm received by the other players in the league? Is he as popular as he is with the fans and he'll get the vote? Or do the other players give it to someone like Jeff McNeil? I think that's an interesting conversation right now.
Oh boy, oh boy. I mean, what a diverse set of two players. I mean,
Yeah.
Jeff McNeil and there's no more diverse two guys. And do you know what? Because I was talking about the All-Star voting earlier this week on the pod, and I called it. I was talking about Jeff McNeil specifically. That he's having an absolutely stunning year.
Yeah.
And I assume he hasn't gone on the IL because the last time I saw him, he'd scored a run, but his hamstring had gone and whatever. So I'm assuming that he wasn't hurt. But he's hitting what 330 or so. It just straight up hitter this year, straight up hitting. Jazz doing it in a different way, bombs and bags for Jazz, and that's
Yeah.
been the way. He's got the swag to go with it as well. It's a really interesting topic you mentioned about the players and how he is perceived by the players. Clearly, there's been a few storylines knocking around in the past few weeks, linked to Jazz and the clubhouse and Miguel Rojas and a few other bits and pieces. But I think Jazz is fine. I mean, I've seen him with Starling Marte. They were hugging like they were family. I don't know. I think Jazz will be okay there, and I think Jazz will be the starter. I said it earlier in the week. I
Yeah.
think he will. I think he will be the NL second base starter. And well deserved for Jazz. And it's great from a Marlins fan perspective to see a voted in player. I
Yeah.
mean, we haven't had a voted in player for a long, long time. Obviously, we've had Trevor Rogers last year, Sandy, and Sandy will be in the All-Star game, no doubt as well. So the Marlins may have two starters. And I don't know where Pablo Lopez may rank in this, but at least two starters, which is big, which kind of like makes us sit back and scratch our heads about this Marlins team, thinking they're 4 games under 500. Somehow they've got the best pitcher in baseball. Jazz Chisholm doing his thing. What's gone wrong with this team? And that's kind of the real head scratcher for us, where we just haven't quite managed to win games we should have. And it feels like the Mets done it the other way around. The Mets just have found ways to win early doors. But you've got to tip your cap too, because you've had Max missing for the majority, for a good chunk anyway. DeGrom we haven't seen all year. McGill, opening day starter, he's been down for some time as well. So how's this rotation shaping up in general now? Because the depth has been tested, I think is the right way of saying it.
One thing I want to say before I get to the Mets rotation, I hope one of your listeners can let me know who the last voted in Marlins starter is, because I'm thinking Hanley Ramirez, and I can't get off of it until I find out the answer. But looking
Someone will
at,
know.
I think so. But looking at the Mets rotation, they went in with kind of 8 starting pitchers going into spring training. They had David Peterson, Tyler McGill, and Trevor Williams as the other options outside of the starting 5 that they built with a lot of veterans. And DeGrom gets hurt in spring training. Haven't seen him. Scherzer kind of got the ball rolling for the Mets, really helped them as the anchor get out to a big lead in the first. I think he made 8 starts to begin the season there before he went down. Tyler McGill was amazing in that first month. And since McGill first went down and Scherzer went down, this has been kind of a rough stretch here. And I think the Mets have done an incredible job keeping their head above water. They haven't been getting the same starting pitching, but they'll still get a game here and there from a Taijuan Walker. Carlos Carrasco has had a lot of really great starts, had a couple bad ones mixed in for sure. That's why his numbers don't jump out, but he's had some really good outings. Chris Bassett went through a really bad funk, especially when the Mets were out west. He's kind of started to turn around. So I think the thing that the Mets have done this year is they've really built a experience rotation. That experience has really paid off. Even if you're looking at a Taijuan Walker or Trevor Williams, who's been the swingman from the bullpen to the rotation, these are guys with hundreds of actual major league starts under their belt. And so it's a lot easier for one of those guys to go out and give you 6 strong innings, even if the larger sample might not be as strong as you would get from a Jacob deGrom or a Max Scherzer, obviously.
For sure. Taijuan Walker last weekend was absolutely sensational in that game. I think that was the Saturday game, if I recall. He was absolutely brilliant. He blew me away how good he was and how well he pitched in that game. He completely shut down the Marlins offense. I think the Marlins may have got a couple of consolidation runs late in the game, maybe in the 9th inning, but that game was cooked. The Mets absolutely controlled that game. He was in full control. Really, really impressive outing for sure. Peterson as well pitched well. Carrasco as well pitched, I think, okay in that game too. So, and Bassett did. It was Seth Lugo that gave up the bomb on the Sunday. So, rotation's done well. I think that's been, maybe old Mets. They would have had these injuries, and it would have just been not good. Let's describe it like that. I almost swore then, but I didn't. I held it back, and it wouldn't have been good. But they've somehow found a way. And it's a little bit like what the Marlins have done recently too. They've had a lot of injuries in the rotation, leaning on guys like Braxton Garrett now and Dan Castano. The Marlins are just coming off a sweep against the Rockies. Yes, it is the Rockies, but here's the change now. Here's the sea change. They won 2, not just one, but they won 2 one-run games in a series. I mean, that is absolutely mind-blowing for these Marlins. Both of those games, the starters, Braxton Garrett and Dan Castano. So they're winning games with depth pieces, one-run games too. And they finally found their closer. This kind of closing situation has been absolutely terrible. I think, if I recall as well, back to 2021, that was one of the problems the Mets were facing into. Like Edwin Diaz was having some real struggles early doors. I think he's just been lights out really this year. And I think it's so great. It's such a game changer for a team to have the 9th inning locked down. There'll always be the odd moment, clearly, with Edwin and with any closer. Have that confidence, and that there's more likely than not you're going to get this save done. I think that's a big part. So how good has he been as well, Edwin Diaz? You see him every day. I kind of just flick in and out, but it looks like he's been elite this year.
He's been special. I mean, right now he's striking out batters at a rate that's just unheard of. It's the by far the most in baseball. Last I checked, his strikeout rate was 48.6%. So basically, 1 out of every 2 guys that he faces, he strikes out. And I think that's kind of the difference between a good closer and an elite closer. Is an elite closer doesn't even let you put the ball in play, and that's what Diaz has been this year. His slider, he's throwing it more than ever, and he's also getting ahead a lot more than he did in the past. So he's getting strike 1. And once he gets strike 1 with his slider, he's just going to throw pitches out of the zone and you're going to get yourself out. And that's what we've seen a lot this year.
Yeah, he's definitely been impressive. Like you said, the K per 9 is absolutely insane for him. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be hoping that you see plenty of that. So we've already mentioned it. Game 1, you're feeling a little bit pessimistic in the likelihood that Sandy probably goes deep, low scoring affair perhaps. What about kind of game 2 and game 3? You thinking that's going to be the 2 games where you look to get the wins and take this series, right?
Yeah, I think what the Mets will try to do tonight is what they tried to do last time against Sandy. They're going to try to work him and they're going to try to get him out of the game. I think if you get him out of the game after the 7th inning, you get 2 cracks at the Marlins bullpen and the game's close. I think that's the Mets' path to a win on Friday. So we'll see how they managed on that one. I think that the bottom line here is what you're going to see from the Mets, what we've seen all season, is they're going to play good defense. They're going to have really strong at-bats throughout, and they're going to try to basically just put the other team in bad positions, and they capitalize a lot of times. So I'm pretty confident in any series the Mets go into right now until they prove otherwise.
You have to be. I mean, the numbers do not lie. They really don't. The Mets didn't lose a series till about, I don't know, May something. It was just insane how well he started. The Braves, though, let's kind of finish up here as well. The Braves have been absolutely scorching themselves. So obviously put a massive lead out there in terms of the division. The Braves then decided, right, that's it. We're going to come back at you. I mean, this battle for the division potentially could be absolutely sensational with 2 what looks like world-class teams, in my opinion. I don't think the Phillies are quite there. I think the Phils and Marlins are a little bit closer in that. that kind of division race. But what's the thoughts here? How's it going to come down when we kind of shake it all out?
Well, I mean, remember the last time we spoke with all the hosts of the NL East before the season. That's what we were all saying. It was going to be Braves and Mets, and I think that the path to it has kind of set up this narrative that the Braves now are maybe the team because they're surging. But the way I look at it, they had a 14-game winning streak against all teams below 500. Not to knock them for it, but to me, that just erased the terrible start. And now these teams are about where we thought they would be, and the Mets had the slight lead. I think it's going to be a race the whole year. And I don't think that there will be any shame if they do lose this division to the Braves, because if they do, I imagine it's because the Braves are going to win 96, 97 games. And so I look at the National League as a whole right now, and I think there's a top tier that the Dodgers have owned. And I think the Braves and the Mets belong in that same tier this season. And I think teams like the Padres and the Giants, and I guess maybe even the Cardinals in the Central are trying to get into that mix right now. But if you look at who the best teams have been in this league this year, I think it's the Dodgers, I think it's the Mets, and I think it's the Braves, honestly.
I can't disagree. I think that's a fair assessment. And wildcard spot, this is kind of interesting. There was a topic I saw, I think maybe an article from The Athletic maybe today, talking about how this extra wild card should have made things more competitive. And they focused in on the bottom tier of teams, the ones that really haven't performed. But nevertheless, this third wild card spot does open it up where you've got maybe 3-4 teams that will feel in the hunt. The Marlins included in that too. So you'll have like the Marlins, the Phils, the Brewers or Cardinals, whichever one doesn't take the division. All fighting for this third spot, plus obviously the Giants as well, Padres. So it's going to be interesting. The division hunt will be interesting, but that third wildcard spot, I do think it will deliver what it was expected or hoped it would do in terms of keeping teams honest longer and in it for longer. And I think that's going to be true. There's a lot of teams that are adrift already and their season's probably cooked. But as a Marlins fan sitting here on the 24th of June, our season is not yet cooked. So that's a positive for sure. Ryan, what are the one final one? And we'll probably speak again before this point, never know, but heading into the deadline, where do the Mets need to add? If they are going to add, what are they going to be doing?
It's funny you mentioned the deadline, because that's what I wanted to say about the Marlins. Is that I think that if you look at some of those teams in the fridge of that wild card race for that last spot, the Marlins have the most when it comes to their farm system to make big swings at this deadline. So that's what I'm fascinated by. Do the Marlins decide this is the year, or do they decide that next year is the year? Because they need a center fielder. And so if they make that move, I think they'll be in the mix. The Mets, they're in this spot where I think everyone expects them to make a lot of big moves. And I look at the roster, I don't see too many holes. I think there's this thought right now that maybe they'll go out and add a starting pitcher. I think that maybe this is just me being a little bit optimistic that this is the worst stretch they're going to go through with injuries, knock on wood. And so I don't know if they need any more depth there. I look at their lineup, they need somebody in that DH spot. I would prefer seeing one of the kids get a shot at it, because they have a couple of top prospects that I think are really special in Francisco Alvarez and Marfientos. Either of them could be the guy, but they might make a move there. And then the bullpen is the obvious one. Any team that's contending wants to add another arm. I think we've seen this year that Edwin Diaz is the only guy you really trust to close out games. And I think they'd like to get a second guy so that you can be a little more flexible with how you use Edwin as well.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's the stock answer. Bullpen arms, it's a stock answer for anyone that's contending. Yeah. It's whether you just like you said, do you go and look to add a starting pitcher? There's one or two out there, I think, that are really intriguing. I think there'll be actually quite a big battle for them and some high price tags knocking around. But yeah, to your point, I mean, if the guys work their way back, Max, Jake, then, that's effectively two new arms that are better than anyone else out there. So
exactly,
get them back and healthy. I'm really intrigued to see the way they play things with Max and DeGrom. Slow and steady. The reality is, leading the division without them, wild card, even if you slip slightly behind the Braves, like still heavily in the wild card hunt, leading and have a wild card spot. So slow and steady, I think, for the pitching, and just build to the postseason rather than force it to try and make the postseason, I think, is perhaps the way to go with those guys. But we're out of time. We're just at the 30-minute mark, which is not too bad for me, guys. So there we go. I'll let everyone have a 30-minute episode. Ryan, where can everyone find you on Twitter for those that are watching the show and have the graphics to assist them?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can find the show at Locked On Mets. You can listen to us or watch us wherever you're finding Locked On Marlins.
There you go. And how I know you may have already done your Friday episode. How complimentary of the Marlins were you in this Friday episode if you actually discussed the series?
Well, so we spent the first 20 plus minutes talking about the Mets prospect I just mentioned, Francisco Alvarez. And then I was very, very complimentary of Sandy Alcantara. I'll say that. Other than that, I can't say I was that glowing of the Marlins otherwise.
Love it. There you go, guys. We'll go and hop on to Locked On Mets if you actually want to dig into that. It's a stunning show. One of the, if not the most listened to baseball anyway shows from the Locked On Network. So Ryan does a great job over there. As I mentioned, also writer with Just Baseball, and the guys, well, the former host of Locked On Marlins, Aram Layton, and the GOAT of Locked On Marlins. So, guys, that's us done, wrapped for another week. That's 5 episodes in the books. Can you believe it? Monday to Friday. So that is us out of here. It's going to be a big, big weekend series. The Mets sound like they're confident. I also feel confident. I feel confident when Sandy's going, Trevor Rogers, we need a big start. We need a series win. But I'll leave you with this, guys. Just imagine if the Marlins sweep the Mets this weekend.